first or the session first?
We're going to do the session first. Camden will not be here today. That's why it's important.
So since there were no questions for the readings, I'm just going to go through a couple of things real quick, and then we'll go through the session questions and the art, and then I guess you can do your test for the government. So Republic Book 4 is dealing with some analogies between virtues and parts of the soul, the different classes of the Republic. So what are the civic virtues that Socrates talks about? There were 4 of them. One of them is yeah.
Wisdom, bravery,
temperance, and justice. So these are then applied by Socrates to different classes. Oh, Hannah, we've already started, but it is also being recorded. All we've gone through so far are the 4 civic virtues. We listed them: wisdom, bravery, temperance, and justice. Now we're going to talk about which ones were applied to whom. So to whom was wisdom applied to in the analogy of the Republic? Which class is the wise class?
The ruling nobles.
Yeah, the ruling noble class. What about bravery? Which class was supposed to be brave?
The ones that carried out the justice.
Yeah, the executives, the soldiers, the police. What about temperance? Temperance is applied to which class? There's kind of 2 left, but they're being grouped together. Yeah, basically everyone else. So we had the 4 classes earlier. They were, and he talked about how they had gold, some had silver, some had iron, some had bronze. So the 4 classes were the ruling class, the police and army, the farmers, and the craftsmen. And here temperance is being applied to the farmers and the craftsmen. They're basically those who are not executives and not legislators. Then to whom is justice applied? Yep, everyone. So injustice actually occurs when anyone interferes with the ability of another to do his work rightly. Justice, in this case, is each man doing his duty in the proper way. Then Socrates talks about the 3 parts of the soul. What are the 3 parts? Yeah.
Deliberation, desire, and spiritedness.
Yes, deliberation, spiritedness, and desire. So he also applies these to the 3 classes that we just mentioned. What is deliberation or reason applied to? Which class? Which of those 3? What? Yeah, the ones who are making the rules should probably have reason, deliberation. Spiritedness, which is also called the will, is applied to which class? Yeah, soldiers, police, other executives. Need to have spirit in order to do their job rightly. What about desire or appetite? Who is that applied to? Yeah, the farmers, the craftsmen, everyone else. So that's most of what the Republic goes over in chapter 4, the civic virtues: wisdom, bravery, temperance, and justice, and the 3 parts of the soul: deliberation, spiritedness, and desire. He applies those to the classes. Any questions on Republic? All right. Nicomachean Ethics. Book 6. You're also supposed to finish Book 5, but I don't have any questions for Book 5. That's for another sheet on this. So we're going to talk about intellect and the 5 modes of attaining truth. So what 2 kinds of intellect does Aristotle go over in this book? Yep.
Contemplative and calculative.
Yes, contemplative and calculative. What is contemplative intellect? What does it attempt to seek? Aristotle says both of these intellects aim at truth, but what kind of truth is contemplative intellect aiming at? This is in section 2.
Calculated faculty is that truth as rightly desired by the exercise of choice.
Yes, calculative intellect aims at truth rightly desired by the exercise of choice, but is contemplative intellect desired? Yes, it aims at universal, unchanging truths. And the example he gives is that right and wrong are truth and falsehood. What would be an example of calculative intellect? We said, according to the title heading, that it desires, or it aims at truth as rightly desired by the exercise of choice. What is choice in this context?
Deliberate.
Yes, the appetite informed by reason. So the choice is a combination of what drives you to things that, like hunger, different things, informed by your reason making decisions on what's good, what's bad. So that's the calculative intellect. It's calculating what's good and bad based on your appetites being informed by your reason. That's how you know, like, don't eat too many jelly beans. That's basically calculative. All right, then he gives 5 modes of thought or states of mind by which truth is reached. What are those 5 modes? Section 3. Yes.
Art, science, fruits, wisdom, and intuition.
Yes. The 5 modes by which truth is attained is art, science, prudence, wisdom, and intuition. This is the beginning of Aristotle's epistemology, which I mentioned like last week, which deals with how we know things. So what then is science? What kind of activity is it, or state? What is its goal? And it's not exactly the same as we think about today. Am I glad?
It's a demonstrative state,
Yes.
so it's like analytical.
It is a demonstrative state concerned with teaching what kinds of things.
Things already know.
No, that'll be more related to the intuition. And this science still deals with today, the types of things that science attempts to understand and teach. Aristotle. Yeah, that's on the right train of thought. He used the word necessary, so necessary things. So things that must exist are the objects of what science attempts to understand. So things like laws and parts of nature. Ultimately, we would say God is the only necessary being, but here Aristotle is referring to those things which are not accidental to the world's existence. Today we kind of think about science as being only based on sensation, only based on things we can observe. You know, you have the scientific method, you observe, you hypothesize, you repeat, things like that. For Aristotle and the reformers and other scientists before the modern era, they would not have ruled out things like revelation or witness testimony in the concept of science, because if you're not there to observe all things, then you're not going to be able to tell all things scientifically. So things like revelation can inform your observations. So, you know, in Genesis, when we read the account of the world being created, we don't have that information as accessible to us. I mean, we can figure out some things through science, and we can't figure out the entire account that God gives us in Genesis. So that would be an example of revelation informing our science. What is art or technical skill? Yeah. This is a productive state, and what is it concerned with? Yes, what kinds of things? And it's in contrast with science. So science teaches necessary things, art produces, yes, things that do not necessarily have to exist. Which for somebody who doesn't like art, that might be a fun kind of sentence, but he's not bashing art here, he's just saying that art is a creative state, creating things that don't have to exist. That's why we can create them. Because only God can create what Aristotle was talking about with necessary things, but the things that don't have to exist, we can create. And how is art related to knowledge then, or attaining knowledge? And we're kind of practicing this in our session questions today. But we're looking at this picture here and what's happening when we're doing that. Yeah.
Socrates is about to drink the camel while his friends are stabbed and pushed away.
Yeah, so it's teaching us about a little bit about history, a little bit about what Socrates was thinking. So art shows truth, goodness, beauty, in order to teach about the world, God, man. Yeah, Michael.
Would they say a picture like that is a type of revelation?
Is a type of what?
Revelation.
It is a type of witness testimony, which, yeah, is revelation. So there's basically two kinds of revelation: revelation from God and revelation from other people. And yeah, this would be an example of revelation. What is, oh, and so is history, by the way. When you write a history book, that's revelation because you're showing something that people were not there for, what happened. What is prudence? What kind of state is it, and what is it interested in determining? Yeah. And so prudence is an active, true state concerned with determining what is good and what is bad. And that is tied strongly to the contemplative intellect, which seeks universal truths: what is right, what is true, what is false, what is good, what is wrong. What is intelligence? What intuition? We touched on this briefly a few minutes ago. That's when it's going to tie into science.
Intuition are things that are already known. So
Yes, they are the self-evident truths. Things like scientific first laws like gravity, or those things that you can't prove, but they're used to prove other things. So you can't actually prove that gravity exists. You can observe apples falling, but there's no way you can logically or mathematically or physically prove that gravity is a real thing. It's a concept we have created based on a series of observations that we can use to prove other things, asserting that gravity is actually real, which we do assume. It's an assumption, but it's a pretty good one. And that is what intelligence or intuition deals with, are those kinds of things. What is wisdom? And Aristotle gives us kind of a different definition than we usually argue.
The most finished form of knowledge?
Yes, what does it seek? And it's combining two other kinds of knowledge in order to study a certain object.
Intuition and scientific.
Yes, and what is this object? What kinds of truth? Yeah, the most precious truths. So wisdom for Aristotle is intuition combined with scientific knowledge of what is most precious. So that concludes our review of the two readings, for which you had no session questions. But you do have session questions for this your painting of Socrates. So the first question, does it demonstrate artist ability after these?
Yes.
What is happening in this scene? And you mentioned a little bit already.
Socrates is about to drink hemlock while his friends are leaving.
Yes, he's drinking hemlock, or about to. His friends are distraught. They can't keep it together. And Socrates is, he's pointing up. Does that remind you of? Yes, because of, yeah, it looks kind of like that. Except Socrates isn't actually talking about forms here. He's pointing to the sky, illustrating the immortality of the soul, because Socrates believed that the soul was immortal. But yeah, it kind of looks like his student Plato, who's pointing at the sky because of the forms. Does this have balance and symmetry? What is the central or most important element of the work? To what are your eyes attracted?
Yeah, I would say it has balance and symmetry. I mean, there's men on either side of Socrates. The thing that most attracts would be him. The light is shining on him. He's wearing a white robe, and it's shown even temporary in the face of death.
Yes. All of those things. Is the work realistic? Is it proportional?
Yeah.
Well, there was another tunnel on the other side.
Oh.
What?
What? There was a tunnel, the hallway on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right, because it shows depth on the left side of it.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yep.
It seems to be very realistic with the state they are all in and the mess almost that it is.
Yes.
Dying.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail, a lot of emotion. They make the point here that Socrates is painted as looking a lot younger than he should look. So that's one place where the artist, according to them, purposely painted him in a way that isn't realistic according to his age, even though it's realistic according to he looks like a man. Why might he paint Socrates as younger than he actually is?
To really emphasize that he shouldn't have died so young.
Pretty old.
Yeah, but he could still have done a lot.
They suggest here that the reason is to express the vibrancy and vitality of his soul. So, in a way, he wasn't really young, but he did have a lot to give the people, the students, that was taken away from Greece by his execution. So they lost a great teacher, and in terms of his teaching, yeah, he was kind of young. In terms of his actual life, not really, but in terms of he still had a lot of good years teaching left. How is light used? You mentioned it already, Violet. It's illuminating Socrates, shining off his white robe. So what other colors are used? Yeah.
Mostly like warm colors, like reds and oranges and browns, and not a lot of like cool colors.
Yes. I don't really know why they asked that question, but it's an interesting question.
What other colors?
Yeah, they say here that those who are most enlightened are white, so I guess the lighter the robe, the more enlightened you are, and I guess the farther away from Socrates you get, the darker the robes get. So they're trying to highlight that.
The blue and the orange seem to pop out the most.
Yeah. And it seems, according to our helpful commentators, that the contrast is to depict who is more involved in truth or enlightenment and who is more projecting it. Yep. Yeah, and that kind of sounds again like Book 7 where he talks about the cave and there's the light outside because we get the truth. But while you're in the cave in the darkness, you don't have the light, you don't have the color, you just have the shadows. So that's a great point. And they have a government test?
Do you have a government?
We don't have to do the subject and content.
Oh, I didn't even see those.
There's something about that. Isn't there something about asking you who?
Questions are on the next page.
Yeah, I didn't see the subject and content analyses. So yeah, let's go through those real quick. What do you think the woman in the background, or why do you think the woman is in the background? Why do you think she's there? Do what? Yes, that is his wife. Yeah, so that's the point.
Do you remember from the last page, Socrates' wife in the background?
She was crying too much.
She was crying too much, and he said, if you can't contain yourself, you should just leave.
Very romantic.
Which one is she?
She is the, yeah,
Oh,
kind
I
of like
see now.
short hair.
Yeah, I think I see
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any significance to the fact that Plato and Crito are both sitting beneath Socrates, while the others are standing?
Weren't they his two closest followers?
And he asked them to be there, right?
Yes. And our commentators are comparing that to Mary and Martha being at Christ's feet. Interesting idea. But yeah.
She had more selfless questions and answers to the face, and you accept that.
Yes. And they are also, like we already said, that they're closer to Socrates. They're more involved in the seeking truth. What is the significance of Socrates pointing up with his left hand while grasping at the hemlock with his right? You briefly mentioned this.
So there's earthly body that's going to die.
Yeah, it's only his earthly body that's going to die. He believes in the immortality of the soul.
I love that.
Yes.
The soul is moving.
Yeah.
It's going to wish it didn't.
He moves from one depth to the next.
So Plato has clearly laid down his parchment and ink pot. His duty, chronicling Socrates' argument, is finished. Why do you think his back is turned to Socrates?
Because he was weak. leaving, and Socrates didn't like to watch people leave his death, so he had told them to turn around.
Yes, he was overstricken by grief, so he was turned around. And our commentators also suggest that he was contemplating the words turning away from the body, partly because he was sad that his master was dying, and partly because he was illustrating that it's the truth that's important, it's not the corporeal body. What is the message of this work? Yeah, Micah.
To strong in your convictions to make sure what you believe is actually what you will die believing.
Yes, and yeah, they are pointing out that truth is more important than life on this earth. So ideas are stronger than death. Truth is stronger than injustice. But even though an injustice is being committed against Socrates, Socrates is at peace because he sought to defend the truth. What is worthy of praise in this piece of art? What is worthy of condemnation? Very strong question, yeah.
Well, the fine attention to detail can be commended in art's ability to portray emotion through the painting, but maybe something to be condemned would be the inaccuracy of Socrates' figure and age.
They're going for more ideological things than the skill itself. Yeah.
One who would be condemned would be the suicide, but
Yeah, as Christians, we would say that that is a type of murder, killing oneself, and clearly that's against the commandments.
As far as that, you make a good point. If you wanted to go into the thing of artistically, what can be condemned? So that was the
Yeah, they are. They mention a few things about the disorder and chaos being reflected well in the works. They're praising the way that that's displayed, the emotion that you can see. As far as what they want to condemn, they're condemning the Gnosticism. So essentially the fact that he wasn't Christian, so even though he loved truth and sought truth, he never actually got to the truth. Seems like more of a criticism of the book than of the painting, I suppose. I can see it.
I guess if you want to go on along the lines of that. The light shining on him, of course, because it's saying that he was seeking after truth, and looking all from a Christian perspective, he was looking for truth on the wrong places. He was seeking it in his own reason, his own wisdom, and so that we have to condemn him for that, but we have to commend him for his kindness. He came pretty close in certain areas, considering he didn't have to reveal.
Yeah, especially when he names the attributes of God, and they're more or less very similar to those revealed in the Bible.
And you can understand why he was accused of blaspheming gods and not respecting gods, because the gods that they had didn't deserve to be respected.
They were basically us, reflections of us.
Yeah, they were superhumans.
Yeah.
They were superheroes behaving badly. That's what they largely were.
You guys have a minor?
I was going to say it's I don't know what the word for it is. The Socrates believed he didn't actually know everything. From a Christian perspective, the only way you come to Christ is by not believing that you can't do everything. So in a way, it's like just on the verge.
He was so close. Yeah. You wonder what would have happened had somebody brought the gospel to him if he could have wrapped his head around it or not.
Of course, in Plato and Socrates' case, they were still fairly humanistic. They believed in the ability of man. They just recognized that they needed to really define when they were talking about define all of these virtues, and they would do that by asking their questions. This once became a Socratic dialogue. So they do say that they don't know anything, but they still have a high view of what they're able to do, versus, like you said, the Christian view is that we are dead in our trespasses and sins, so it has to be God's activity only. The dead can't do anything. But yeah, that there is a similarity between their understanding of knowledge and our understanding of faith, which seeks knowledge. That is all that questions have for us. Is that the government touchdown?
Rick.
Should I just read my thing and then go to it?
I guess we never.
All right, so I will email you the test. When you finish it, just email it back to me again. You don't have to stay online while you're taking the test, though. Okay? Enjoy your 3-day weekend. Oh, right, hold on, before you log out. I was supposed to introduce the writing assignment. Oops. Right. Thank you for reminding me. I said you guys were going to have to remind me, I knew I would forget. All right. This must be from Nicomachean Ethics, huh? Yes. Okay. Session 7 from Nicomachean Ethics. You have a writing assignment which all of you except for Hannah will have done one of these before. It's a Kriya. All right. So in the Omnibus series, there are a series of writings that are called progimisnata. And there's different types of these. One of them is called a Kriya, and that's what you're going to be going over today. So let's just go ahead and read what you're going to be doing here. All right. What is a Kriya? It's in this second section here. A Kriya is an ancient rhetorical form used to examine and unfold a wise saying or deed. It's an excellent way to explore the depths or riches in a pithy quotation. The French have a phrase, le juste mot, which means exactly the right word or expression. Sometimes great sayings are very compact and use just the right words, but the saying might be profound enough that it cannot be appreciated without exploring it in greater detail. The Kriya is an excellent vehicle for exploring a profound saying. A typical Kriya is composed of the following 8 parts. All right, so in this particular writing assignment, you will be doing parts 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8. You'll be omitting 3 and 6. Now it says if you desire, you can do all 8 if you want to. But in this particular one, you can skip steps 3 and 6. Now, the way that this basically works is most of your grade will be based upon if you have the parts in there. And each part will be approximately a paragraph long, so this would be less than 2 pages total. So what you're going to do is use this quotation and expand on it. So here is the quotation from Aristotle. It follows that in the general sense also, the man who is capable of deliberating has practical wisdom. All right, it follows that in the general sense also, the man who is capable of deliberating has practical wisdom. So if you can deliberate and decide between 2 choices, you should have practical wisdom. That's what he's saying. All right, so what are you going to put in your paragraph then, or in your Kriya? You're going to have a first sentence that will say, Aristotle, in Nicomachean Ethics, Book 6, Section 5, says, it follows in the general sense, and then quote it out and all. Then, in that first paragraph, you're going to praise the speaker, which is Aristotle. You're going to say something nice about Aristotle. You might say something like, this statement comes from Aristotle, one of the greatest and most fruitful minds in human history. He invented many fields of study, and his thinking was so powerful that it dominated philosophy for centuries. All right, so you might say something like that. Say something to praise Aristotle. Then the paraphrasing is you're going to retell this in your own words. So you're going to take what he said and put it in your own words. Maybe this is the suggested one they have. If a man is considered to have practical wisdom, he must also be good at weighing options. That's how they summarized it. That's your second paragraph. Next paragraph, from the cause. You're going to explain why he said this. All right? So he mentions this because he has observed its truth in the world. For Aristotle, the world is important. If a man claims to be wise but has no practical wisdom, he cannot decide between one course of action and another. And he will not call such a man wise. All right, so something like that. You're going to say he said this because he realized that somebody who couldn't make decisions was not wise. Somebody who couldn't deliberate was not wise. All right, so you're going to see something along those lines. Then you're going to do from the contrary. Well, actually, you can skip from the cause, it said, but if you decided to do from the cause, that's what it would be. From the contrary, you're going to explain what would happen if the opposite of the saying was true. So if the opposite was true, then real wisdom could be completely separated from good deliberation and good weighing of options. And that's just not the case. So you'd say that would allow people to claim to be wise who don't even use good logic. All right. Then you have to do an analogy. An analogy is to take the saying or action and compare it to something general. Something general. So here's their analogy that they go as an example. This is like two young men who come to the time of courtship. One decides to read many books about young ladies. The other decides to actually get to know one particular young lady of great beauty and virtue. The young man who knows about girls from books will, of course, continue with this knowledge alone. The young man who has real wisdom, that has come from relating to a real woman, will win the girl's hand. All right, so that's a general type thing. It's not a specific, it's a general. Then the example would be a very specific thing, such as Odysseus was the sort of man who was able to make these types of decisions. When faced with the fact that the walls of Troy had stood for 10 years against all their assaults, and that no forces assembled on the beach was going to be able to take the citadel, he weighed his options and demonstrated practical wisdom by calling on the Greeks to build the Trojan horse. That's a specific example of using his intelligence to determine a proper course of action. Okay? Okay. Then you have to do, you can skip example, it says on this one as well, if you choose to skip that. 7 is the testimony of the ancients. Quote another smart person who says something that's roughly the same. Good people to quote could be from the scriptures. So find a scripture thing that says that a wise man thinks before he acts, or something along those lines. Or find another famous person that says it. They chose one here that's not actually from an ancient person. He chose a quote by Steve Jobs.